I'm Emma Reynolds, 34, a self-made tech entrepreneur who built a company worth $10 million from nothing. I gave everything to my husband Ryan and his family, paid bills, funded college, bought homes. I thought they were the loving family I never had. Then, during a dinner I prepared, my mother-in-law Barbara looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You've never belonged here. You're just a lowlife who got lucky. If you don't like how we do things, you can leave." Before I tell you how my picture-perfect family life shattered overnight, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted. Growing up in a small town in Ohio wasn't easy. My parents worked multiple jobs just to keep our modest two-bedroom home, and I learned early that nothing in life comes free. By 16, I was working at the local diner after school, saving every penny for college. My parents wanted to help, but simply couldn't afford it. Their encouragement was my fuel. "Emma, you're smarter than all of us. You'll go places." College was a blur of classes, study sessions, and jobs. I worked at the campus coffee shop mornings, tutored computer science afternoons, and waited tables at night. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. While other students partied, I was debugging code or serving lattes. The exhaustion was worth it though. I was the first in my family to attend college, and nothing would stop me from graduating. It was during an advanced programming class that I met Ryan Thompson, tall, confident, with an easy smile. He came from a completely different world. His parents paid for his education, his apartment, and his car. Despite our different backgrounds, we connected instantly over our shared love for coding. He was brilliant with theory, while I excel at practical applications. We complemented each other perfectly. Ryan was fascinated by my work ethic. "I've never met anyone who works as hard as you," he'd say with admiration. Our late-night coding sessions turned into dinner dates, and soon we were inseparable. I fell in love with his ambition and kindness. He seemed to value my determination and grit. After graduation, we both landed entry-level positions at different tech companies. I worked at a mid-sized software firm where I quickly gained a reputation as a problem solver. For 3 years, I put in extra hours, took on additional projects, and consistently exceeded expectations. When a senior developer position opened up, I was certain it would be mine. The day my manager called me into his office, I was already mentally redecorating my new workspace. Instead, he informed me they were bringing someone in from outside the company. "He has more experience," my manager explained, avoiding eye contact. The truth became clear when I saw the new hire, a former college classmate of the CEO with half my technical skills. That night, nursing my disappointment over ice cream, I had my breakthrough idea, a software solution that would revolutionize how small businesses handled inventory management. Something affordable, user-friendly, and powerful. I couldn't sleep, coding until sunrise, mapping out my vision. When I showed Ryan my prototype, he was impressed but cautious. "This is amazing, Emma, but starting a business is risky. Maybe wait until we have more savings." His parents echoed his concerns when we met them for dinner that weekend. Barbara, his mother, patted my hand condescendingly. "Darling, businesses need connections. Perhaps Ryan's father could introduce you to some of his golf buddies instead." I thanked them but decided to forge ahead anyway. I quit my job, cashed out my modest 401k, and rented a tiny office space. Ryan supported my decision, but didn't join me, preferring the security of his corporate position. "One of us needs a stable income," he reasoned, which made sense at the time. The first 6 months were brutal. I lived on ramen noodles and coffee, working 18-hour days. Several potential investors turned me down, often without even looking at my demo. I was about to give up when a small business owner I'd met at a networking event gave my software a chance. Her enthusiastic testimonial led to 3 more clients, then 10, then 50. By the end of the first year, I had to hire 2 developers to keep up with demand. By year 2, We moved to a proper office and had a team of 15. The turning point came when a major retail chain discovered our product and wanted a customized enterprise version. That single contract was worth more than all our previous sales combined. Success snowballed from there. Industry awards, speaking, engagements, and media features followed. By our 5th year, my company valuation hit $10 million. I was the success story everyone wanted to hear. The girl from nowhere who made it through sheer determination. As my business flourished, subtle changes occurred in my relationship with Ryan. His initial pride in my accomplishments seemed to wane, replaced by a strange passivity. He quit his job to help with the business, but mostly attended networking events and handled minor administrative tasks. I didn't mind supporting us both. I was living my dream and wanted to share it with him. When Ryan proposed, I was overjoyed. We had a beautiful, modest wedding, as I wanted to reinvest most profits back into the company. That's when I first truly got to know his family, especially his mother, Barbara. Initially, she seemed warm and welcoming, constantly telling friends how proud she was of her brilliant daughter-in-law. I was desperate to belong to a real family unit, something I always craved, so I overlooked the subtle competitive edge in her compliments. Emma is so successful for someone from her background. She'd tell her friends at our wedding reception. Just goes to show that anyone can make it in America. At the time, I thought she was being supportive. I didn't notice how she emphasized background or the surprised tone when she said successful. I was too happy to have a family at last to recognize these early warning signs. With my company's success, Ryan and I purchased a 5-bedroom house in an upscale neighborhood. I envisioned a home filled with future children. But Ryan had other ideas. We should have my parents over every Sunday, he suggested, and the guest room could be perfect for when my sister visits from college. Before I knew it, our home became the gathering place for all Thompson family events. At first, I loved it. Growing up with parents who worked constantly, I'd never experienced regular family dinners or holiday gatherings. I threw myself into hosting, preparing elaborate meals and decorating for every occasion. Barbara would arrive early, allegedly to help, though she spent most of her time rearranging my carefully planned table settings or adjusting my decorations. The napkins really should be folded this way, dear, she'd say. This is how proper families do it. Each comment carried a subtle reminder that I wasn't raised with proper knowledge. I'd smile and thank her for the advice, eager to learn what I thought were the traditions of my new family. When Ryan's younger brother Jack needed tuition money for his sophomore year after losing his scholarship, I immediately offered to help. We can't let his education suffer, I told Ryan, writing a check that covered not just the semester, but the entire year. Barbara hugged me with tears in her eyes. You're an angel, she said. I felt warm acceptance wash over me. Finally, I belonged. That opened the floodgates. Soon I was paying for Ryan's sister Melissa's graduate school, covering his father's medical bills when he needed knee surgery, and funding family vacations to destinations I was too busy working to enjoy myself. You've been blessed with success, Barbara would say. It's only right to share your blessings with family. And I agreed wholeheartedly. Ryan's attitude shifted subtly with each passing month. The man who once admired my work ethic now complained about my long hours. Mom says a wife should be more present, he'd mention casually. When I'd point out that my work funded our lifestyle, he'd get defensive. It's not all about money, Emma. Family comes first. The irony that I was working to support his family seemed lost on him. For Barbara's 60th birthday, I arranged a surprise party at an exclusive restaurant, flying in relatives from across the country and renting a small event space for the weekend. The bill was astronomical, but seeing Barbara's delighted face made it worthwhile. This is what family does, I told myself. Yet at the party, I overheard her telling her sister, it's the least Emma could do, considering everything we've done for her. Without Ryan, who knows where she'd be? The comment stung, but I brushed it aside. Everyone says thoughtless things occasionally, right? I focused instead on the mounting pile of thank you cards from Ryan's siblings for various gifts and financial support. I kept them in my desk drawer, tangible proof that I was valued. When Ryan's cousin Tyler lost his job and needed a place to stay, Ryan offered our home without consulting me. It'll just be for a few weeks, he assured me. Those weeks turned into months. Tyler, a 30-year-old with seemingly no ambition, spent his days playing video games in our living room and his evenings raiding our refrigerator. His job search consisted of occasional half-hearted online applications. I tried speaking to Ryan about it. Tyler needs to set a deadline for finding his own place, I suggested gently. Ryan's response floored me. Mom thinks you're being selfish. We have all this space and money. Why shouldn't we share with family in need? That was the first time I realized Barbara was discussing me with Ryan behind my back. It wouldn't be the last. As my company expanded internationally, my workload increased. I'd come home exhausted from 12-hour days to find the house filled with Ryan's family members, who treated me more like a housekeeper than the homeowner. Barbara had her own key and would often rearrange my belongings to make things nicer. My home office became the family's dumping ground for coats and bags during gatherings. I tried building a relationship with Barbara through shopping trips and weekly lunches. During these outings, she'd reminisce about Ryan's childhood and the family's history, subtly emphasizing traditions and connections that excluded me. The Thompson women have always known how to create a proper home, she'd say while examining my purchases with a critical eye. You'll learn eventually, I suppose. Each time I achieved a new business milestone, the family's reaction became more muted. Instead of congratulations, I'd hear comments like, "That's nice, dear. Now about the family reunion next month, we'll need you to handle the expenses." Of course, my accomplishments were acknowledged only in terms of what they could provide. For the family, the isolation grew as Ryan increasingly sided with his mother on every disagreement. "That's just how Mom is," became his mantra whenever I expressed her over her comments or actions. I was working 60-hour weeks, supporting an entire extended family, yet somehow I was painted as the selfish one whenever I requested basic consideration. Our 5th wedding anniversary was approaching, and despite everything, I wanted to make it special. I reserved a table at La Bernardine, an exclusive restaurant with a months-long waiting list. I arranged for Ryan's favorite flowers to be delivered to the restaurant and commissioned a custom watch as his gift. Planning these details while launching a new product line was exhausting, but I wanted to reconnect with the man I'd fallen in love with. The week before our anniversary, I came home early to find Barbara in our bedroom, going through my jewelry box, just looking for earrings to borrow for my lunch tomorrow. She explained, without a hint of embarrassment, "You have so many you never wear." I stood speechless as she selected my diamond studs, a gift I'd bought myself to celebrate our first major contract, and walked out as if it were perfectly normal. When I mentioned the incident to Ryan that evening, his response was dismissive. "Mom's always shared jewelry with her daughters. She sees you as her daughter too." When I pointed out that she hadn't asked permission, he sighed impatiently. "You're overreacting. It's just earrings that cost $5,000. Earrings I'd earned through countless sleepless nights and endless pitch meetings." But I swallowed my frustration, not wanting to spoil our upcoming anniversary celebration. The next day, while reviewing company finances with my CFO, I discovered something troubling. A series of transfers from our joint personal account to an unfamiliar account over the past 6 months. When I investigated further, I found Ryan had been sending substantial sums to his parents and siblings without discussing it with me. That evening, I confronted him calmly. "I noticed the transfers to your family. I wish you'd talk to me first." Ryan's face flushed with anger. "Not guilt. It's our money, not just yours. I shouldn't need permission to help my family. I've never objected to helping your family," I reminded him. "I just thought we made those decisions together." "Mom was right," he muttered. "Success has changed you, You've become controlling with money." The mention of his mother stopped me cold. "You discussed this with Barbara before talking to me?" Ryan looked away. "She understands family obligations better than you do." That night, as I lay awake beside my sleeping husband, I recalled a conversation I'd overheard at the last family gathering. Barbara talking to Ryan's aunt in the kitchen, not realizing I was approaching. "Of course Emma owes us. Where would she be without Ryan? Just another small-town nobody. The least she can do is share the wealth. After all, we've accepted her." Despite everything, the words had cut deep, but I'd convinced myself I'd misheard or misunderstood. Now, with Ryan's betrayal about our finances, I couldn't deny the truth any longer. To his family, I wasn't a person, I was a resource to be exploited. The next morning, I called my personal attorney to discuss my options. She advised documenting all the money I'd given to Ryan's family and suggested I consult a divorce lawyer. "Just in case, you need to protect yourself and your company," she warned. I wasn't ready to consider divorce yet, but I took her advice. About documentation, when I reviewed our finances, the numbers were staggering. Over the past 5 years, I'd given over $2 million to Ryan's family through tuition payments, medical bills, down payments on homes, and endless loans that were never repaid. The revelation made me physically ill. That weekend, Ryan's entire family came over for their usual Sunday dinner. Barbara arrived early, criticized my choice of wines, and rearranged the dining room. Tyler, still living with us for months after his temporary stay began, invited to friends without asking. Jack and his girlfriend announced they were planning a destination wedding in Bali. Nothing extravagant. Emmer, probably only $50,000. As I served the meal I'd spent hours preparing, Barbara held court at my table, discussing their upcoming family cruise. "Emma's treating us all to celebrate Jack's graduation," she announced, though this was the first I'd heard of it. When I didn't immediately confirm, she shot me a sharp look. "Right, Emma?" I smiled tightly. "We'll have to discuss the details later." Barbara's eyes narrowed. "I've already put deposits down on the cabins, premium suites for everyone, as Emma would want." The assumption that I would pay for a cruise I hadn't agreed to was the final straw. I decided then that we needed to have an honest conversation about boundaries, not in anger, but with clarity and firmness. I would plan a special dinner, just Ryan, his parents, and me, to address these issues calmly and reasonably. I spent the next week planning this important dinner. I selected Barbara's favorite foods, bought her preferred wine, and even used the table settings she had always criticized mine for not matching. I rehearsed what I would say, focusing on I statements and positive approaches to setting healthy boundaries. I truly believed we could work through this if we just communicated openly. Ryan seemed distracted when I told him about the dinner plan. "Whatever you think is best," he said, barely looking up from his phone. I chose to take his agreement as support, ignoring the warning bells in my mind. The night before our discussion dinner, I overheard Ryan on the phone with Barbara. "Yes, Mom, I know she's being difficult about the cruise. Don't worry, I'll make sure she comes around." "Yes." I reminded her how much we've done for her. I froze outside our bedroom door, heart pounding. What exactly did they think they had done for me? I was the one who had supported everyone, who had opened my home and my wallet without complaint. The conversation confirmed my worst fears. Ryan didn't see himself as complicit in his family's exploitation of me. He was the ringleader. Still, I went ahead with the dinner plans. Perhaps face-to-face honesty could break through where hints and gentle requests had failed. I had to try one last time before taking more drastic measures. The day of the dinner arrived with beautiful spring weather that matched my hopeful mood. I left work early to prepare everything perfectly. Fresh flowers adorned the dining room table, which was set with our finest china and crystal. I prepared Barbara's favorite roast beef with Yorkshire pudding, made from scratch following her own recipe the way it should be done. The house smelled amazing as I lit candles and adjusted the lighting to create a warm, intimate atmosphere. My goal was simple: create such a loving environment that my in-laws would have to recognize my genuine care for the family. Then, when I broached the subject of financial boundaries, they would understand it wasn't coming from a place of selfishness, but from a need for mutual respect. Barbara arrived 45 minutes early, as I'd anticipated. "I thought you might need help," she announced, surveying the perfectly set table with a critical eye. "The wine glasses should be on the right, not the left." I smiled warmly. "Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate the advice." I moved the glasses without argument. She wandered into the kitchen and lifted the lid on my roast. Looks a bit overdone. I always cook mine for exactly 22 minutes per pound. The roast was perfectly medium rare, exactly as her son preferred it. "I hope it will still taste good," I said, maintaining my pleasant demeanor. "Would you like some wine while we wait for the men?" Barbara accepted the glass, but frowned at the label. This isn't the vintage I usually prefer. It was the exact bottle she had praised at Christmas dinner. But I simply nodded. "I'll remember that for next time." Ryan and his father arrived together. My father-in-law, William, immediately headed for the liquor cabinet, pouring himself a scotch without asking. Ryan kissed my cheek absently before joining his mother in the kitchen, where she was now rearranging my carefully organized serving dishes. Dinner began pleasantly enough. I served each course with care, making sure everyone's needs were met before sitting down myself. The conversation flowed, mostly between the three Thompsons, with me smiling and nodding at appropriate intervals. They discussed family members I'd financially supported, but barely knew, reminisced about vacations I'd paid for but had been too busy working to attend, and made plans for future events that would undoubtedly require my checkbook. After serving dessert, Barbara's favorite tiramisu from an exclusive Italian bakery across town, I gently steered the conversation toward my prepared topic. "I have some exciting news," I began. "The company just secured a major international contract that will expand our operations significantly." "That's nice, dear," Barbara said with minimal interest. "Speaking of money, William and I were thinking of redoing our kitchen. Nothing extravagant, just new appliances and maybe granite countertops." I took a deep breath. "Actually, that relates to what I wanted to discuss tonight. With the company expanding, I need to be more structured about our finances going forward." The table fell silent. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me. "What exactly does that mean?" Barbara asked, her voice suddenly sharp. "Just that I'd like us to plan major expenses in advance, rather than assuming I'll cover unexpected costs." I explained carefully. "I'm happy to help the family, but I need to budget appropriately." Barbara set down her fork with a clatter. "Budget? You make millions, and suddenly you're counting pennies with family." "It's not about counting pennies," I said, maintaining my calm. "It's about mutual respect and planning." "Respect?" Barbara's voice rose. "After everything we've done for you, we welcomed you into our family despite your background. We introduced you to people you never would have met otherwise. Ryan supported your little business idea when nobody else would." Each word felt like a physical blow. "I appreciate being welcomed into the family," I said carefully. "But I've also contributed significantly." "Oh, here we go," Barbara interrupted. "The money talk. Always about the money with you, as if that makes up for everything else you lack." Ryan shifted uncomfortably but said nothing in my defense. "I don't think I understand," I said, struggling to maintain composure. "What exactly do you feel I lack?" Barbara's face contorted with sudden fury. "Class, breeding, understanding of family loyalty. You've never belonged here. You're just a lowlife who got lucky. If you don't like how we do things, you can leave." The dining room fell into shocked silence. I looked at Ryan, waiting for him to defend me, to express outrage at his mother's words. He stared at his plate. "Mom's just tired." He finally mumbled, "She doesn't mean it." Barbara didn't retract her statement. Instead, she turned to William as if I'd vanished. "The cruise deposits are due next week. I'm thinking we should upgrade to balcony suites for everyone." They continued discussing vacation plans while I sat frozen, the truth finally crystallizing with perfect clarity. This was how they truly saw me, not as family, but as an ATM with an inconvenient human attached. Without a word, I stood and walked out of the dining room. Behind me, I heard William ask, "Is she getting more wine?" Followed by the clink of forks against plates as they continued eating. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, strangely calm. The devastation I expected didn't come, just a cold certainty that I'd been living a lie. The family I thought I'd found had never existed. They had never valued me, only what I could provide. I heard Ryan excuse himself from the table and braced for his arrival. When he entered the bedroom, his expression was annoyed rather than concerned. "You're overreacting," he said before I could speak. "Mom gets dramatic sometimes. You know how she is." "Yes," I said quietly. "I finally do know exactly how she is and how you are." "What's that supposed to mean?" He crossed his arms defensively. "It means I heard the truth tonight. Not just from your mother, but from your silence." Ryan rolled his eyes. "Don't make this into a bigger deal than it is. Just come back to the table and apologize for being sensitive." I looked at this man I'd loved for years, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight." "Fine." He huffed. "Take some time to cool off. We'll talk when you're being reasonable." He turned and went back to his parents, never asking if I was okay. In the guest room, I lay awake listening to the sounds of laughter floating up from the dining room. They were having a wonderful time without me. Perhaps they'd always had a wonderful time at my expense. Morning light streamed through unfamiliar curtains as I woke in the guest bedroom. For a moment, I couldn't remember why I wasn't in my own bed. Then Barbara's words echoed in my mind. "You're just a lowlife who got lucky." I showered and dressed for work in the guest bathroom, delaying the inevitable confrontation with Ryan. When I finally went downstairs, he was reading the newspaper at the kitchen island, coffee in hand. As if nothing had happened. "Finally," he said without looking up. "Mom and Dad had to leave without saying goodbye. We need to talk about last night," I said. Ryan sighed dramatically. "Mom called this morning. She's willing to move past your rudeness if you apologize." I stared at him, incredulous. "My rudeness? Ryan, your mother called me a lowlife and told me to leave. You're taking it out of context." He dismissed. "Mom gets passionate when she feels the family is being attacked." I wasn't attacking anyone. I was trying to establish reasonable financial boundaries. Ryan's expression hardened. "There it is again. The money. You hold it over everyone's head. Maybe Mom's right. Success has changed you. This isn't about money." I tried to explain. "It's about respect. Your family treats me like an outsider while expecting me to fund their lifestyle." "That's ridiculous," he scoffed. "They've done nothing but accept you." I realized then that no amount of explanation would make him understand. He was too entrenched in his family's perspective to see the situation clearly. I gathered my laptop and purse, heading for the door. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "To work." I replied simply, "We can continue this conversation tonight at my office." I closed the door and allowed myself 15 minutes to cry. The only tears I would shed for a marriage that had revealed itself to be transactional rather than loving. Then I washed my face, applied fresh makeup, and called my assistant to clear my schedule for the afternoon. Instead of client meetings, I spent those hours with my personal financial advisor. We reviewed all my assets, separating what was legally mine alone, the company, from joint property, our home, and investments. I was shocked to discover how much money had flowed from our joint account to Ryan's family over the years, nearly $3 million in total. "You need to protect yourself," my advisor warned. "Based on what you've told me, this situation could get messy." I took her advice and scheduled an appointment with a divorce attorney for the following day. I wasn't ready to file yet, but I needed to understand my options. That night, I returned home late intentionally, hoping Ryan would be asleep. Instead, He was waiting in the living room, a glass of whiskey in hand. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "Mom invited us to dinner to clear the air." "I had work," I replied, setting down my bags. "And I'm not ready to see your mother right now." "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You're acting like a child. One comment and you fall apart." It wasn't just one comment, Ryan. It was the truth behind it. "Your mother said what she really thinks of me, and you didn't defend me. What did you expect me to do? She's my mother, and I'm your wife," I countered quietly. "Or at least, I thought that meant something." Ryan's expression softened slightly, sensing he might be losing ground. "Look, Emmer, you know Mom can be difficult, but family sticks together through everything. That's what the Thompsons do. And my family." "Ryan, really? Because it feels like I'm just the bankroll." He approached me, attempting to take my hands. I stepped back. "Of course you're family," he insisted. "Why else would we include you in everything?" His words revealed so much. "Include me in my own home, with my own money," as if their presence was the gift, not my generosity. "I need some time to think," I said, heading toward the stairs. "There's nothing to think about," he called after me. "Just apologize to Mom, and everything goes back to normal." But normal was the problem. Normal meant being exploited and disrespected. Normal meant funding an endless stream of demands while being treated as an outsider. Normal wasn't good enough anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, I implemented my exit strategy with methodical precision. I documented every financial contribution I'd made to Ryan's family. I secured important documents and irreplaceable personal items in a safe deposit box. I consulted with attorneys about protecting my business in a divorce. I quietly secured a furnished apartment under a business LLC to avoid detection. Each night, I returned home and played the role of a wife reconsidering her position. I listened to Ryan's lectures about family loyalty. I endured his mother's daily calls, which he took on speakerphone in my presence as a form of pressure. I even attended a family dinner where Barbara acted as if nothing had happened while making pointed comments about people who don't understand family values. Throughout it all, I remained calm, neither agreeing nor openly challenging their narrative. I was buying time to ensure my departure would be clean and complete. The most painful discovery came when I checked our joint investment account and found it nearly depleted. Ryan had withdrawn over $600,000 in the past week. When confronted, he casually explained that his brother Jack needed help with a business opportunity. "You should have discussed it with me first," I said, struggling to hide my anger. "Why? So you could say no? The opportunity wouldn't wait for your permission." That night, I finalized my exit date. There was nothing left to salvage. The evening before my planned departure, I gave Ryan one last chance. We sat in our living room, the home I had paid for but never felt comfortable in. "Ryan, I need to ask you something important," I began carefully. "When your mother called me a lowlife and told me to leave, how did that make you feel?" He sighed impatiently. "We're still on this." "It was nothing. Mom speaks her mind." "It wasn't nothing to me," I pressed. "Your mother insulted me deeply, and you said nothing. What did you want me to say? Take sides against my own mother?" "I wanted you to stand up for your wife." Ryan's expression hardened. "You're being dramatic. If you just apologized to Mom, do you think I should apologize?" I interrupted. "Do you think I'm the one who was wrong?" "I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill." "That's what I think." In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I was making the right decision. Ryan would never see me as his partner, worthy of defense and respect. In his mind, I would always be secondary to his birth family, useful for my financial contributions, but not truly one of them. "Thank you for being honest," I said, rising from the couch. "Does this mean you'll call Mom tomorrow?" he asked. "Hopefully," I smiled sadly. "It means I finally have the answer I needed." The next morning, I woke before dawn. Ryan was still asleep, his face peaceful, unaware that this was the last time we would share a home. I dressed quietly and took one final walk through the house, saying a silent goodbye to the life I'd built and the dreams I'd invested in these walls. In my home office, I placed 3 envelopes on my desk. The first contained a letter to Ryan explaining my decision to leave. The second held documentation of all financial contributions I'd made to his family. The third contained information about the divorce proceedings my attorney would initiate that afternoon. By fortunate coincidence, Ryan's family had planned a day trip to visit his aunt in a neighboring town. Ryan would be joining them, giving me the perfect opportunity to leave without confrontation. As he rushed through breakfast, preoccupied with being late to meet his family, he barely noticed my quiet demeanor. "Don't wait up tonight," he called as he headed for the door. "We might stay for dinner." "Have a good day," I replied, knowing these would be my final words to him in this house. The moment his car pulled away, I sprang into action. The moving company I'd hired arrived precisely on schedule. I had given them exact instructions about which items were mine, my personal belongings, items I'd owned before marriage, and a few pieces of furniture I'd purchased myself. Everything jointly acquired would remain, including wedding gifts and anything that could possibly be contested. By noon, my personal items were loaded into the truck and headed for storage. My essential belongings, clothes, personal documents, a few cherished photos, went into my car. I did a final walkthrough to ensure I'd left no trace of my packing. The house looked virtually unchanged, except for my deliberately empty closet and the envelopes on my office desk. As I pulled out of the driveway for the last time, a strange sense of lightness washed over me. For years, I'd carried the burden of trying to earn acceptance from people who had never intended to truly welcome me. That weight was finally lifting. My new apartment was in a secure building across town, furnished simply but comfortably. I unpacked my clothes, set up my laptop, and prepared for the storm that would inevitably come when Ryan returned home to find me gone. The first call came at 6:43 p.m. I let it go to voicemail. Then another and another. Text messages began flooding in, evolving from confused "where are you?" to angry "how dare you leave like this?" to manipulative "mom is devastated. How could you hurt the family this way?" Barbara's voicemail was particularly venomous. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us, with abandonment and ingratitude. You think you can just walk away from family commitments? You have obligations to fulfill." The irony wasn't lost on me. The same woman who told me to leave was now furious that I had taken her advice. Ryan's messages grew increasingly desperate as the evening wore on. By midnight, he was alternating between rage and pleading. "You've destroyed our family. Please come home so we can fix this. You're behaving like a spoiled child. I'm worried about you." I maintained my silence, following my attorney's advice not to engage directly until the legal groundwork was in place. The next day, Ryan was served with divorce papers at our home. His reaction was a barrage of furious calls and texts, accusing me of blindsiding him and betraying the family. I forwarded each message to my attorney without responding. What surprised me most was the reaction from Ryan's siblings. Shaq, whose education I had funded, sent a lengthy email expressing shock that I would abandon the family when his wedding was only months away. "We were counting on your contribution," he wrote without a hint of irony. Melissa, whose graduate school I had paid for entirely, texted to say I had a moral obligation to continue supporting her until she found a job. Their messages revealed how completely they had viewed me as a financial resource rather than a person. Not one expressed concern for my well-being or acknowledged the hurt I might have experienced. Their only concern was the sudden cut-off of funds. The most illuminating moment came 3 weeks after my departure. My attorney forwarded an email from Ryan's lawyer demanding that I continue paying the mortgage on our home, cover his car payments, and maintain family support payments during divorce proceedings. The justification: Mrs. Reynolds established a standard of living for the Thompson family that they have come to rely upon. I actually laughed out loud reading it. The entitlement was so blatant, so lacking in self-awareness. that it confirmed every reason for my departure. The divorce proceedings grew increasingly contentious as Ryan's family realized the financial implications of my exit. Barbara hired her own attorney to argue the promises I had allegedly made created a binding obligation to fund family expenses. Ryan claimed he had contributed significantly to my business success and deserved a substantial portion of the company. Fortunately, I had maintained clear separation between my business and personal finances. My company had been established before our marriage with documented proof that Ryan had no operational role. The extensive documentation of my one-sided financial support of his family actually worked in my favor, demonstrating the inequity of our relationship. 6 months into the proceedings, I received an unexpected call from Ryan's father, William. He asked to meet for coffee. Away from Barbara and Ryan, curious, I agreed, with my attorney's knowledge. William looked aged beyond his years when he arrived at the cafe. I'm not here to negotiate, he began awkwardly. Barbara doesn't know I'm meeting you. Why are you here? I asked. He stared into his coffee cup. Things have changed since you left. Without your contributions, we've had to adjust our lifestyle significantly. Barbara is selling her jewelry. Ryan had to get a real job. I waited, sensing there was more. The family blames Ryan now. He continued, Barbara says he should have kept you happy, whatever it took. They're not speaking. He's living in the garage apartment at my brother's house. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy for Ryan, now experiencing the conditional nature of his family's love that I had endured for years. I'm sorry to hear that, I said sincerely. But I'm not sure why you're telling me this. William looked up, his expression pained. I guess I wanted you to know that some of us understand why you left. I never stood up to Barbara, so I can't blame you for leaving when Ryan wouldn't stand up to her either. It was the closest thing to an apology I would ever receive from the Thompson family. The divorce was finalized after 8 months. The judge was unimpressed by Ryan's claims against my business and rejected Barbara's unusual attempt to be named as an interested party. In our divorce, I kept my company and personal assets, while Ryan received a fair settlement that included our house, which he promptly sold to pay debts, and a portion of our joint investments. The final communication I received from Barbara was a Christmas card addressed to the family sent to my company office. Inside was a handwritten note. We are still waiting for you to come to your senses and remember where your loyalties should lie. Family is forever. I shredded the card and finally blocked her number. The first 6 months on my own were more difficult than I had anticipated. Though I had no regrets about leaving, I found myself struggling with an unexpected sense of loss. I hadn't lost a loving family. That had been an illusion. But I had lost the hope of belonging to something larger than myself. My apartment, though peaceful, felt empty in the evenings. I threw myself into work, extending my already long hours until my assistant gently suggested I might be avoiding something. She was right. Of course, I was avoiding the painful process of rebuilding my life. On her recommendation, I joined a support group for women recovering from difficult divorces. At my first meeting, I sat quietly, listening to others share their stories. When my turn came, I spoke hesitantly about my experience, expecting judgment for walking away from my marriage. Instead, I found understanding nods and murmurs of recognition. You didn't leave your marriage. One woman told me after the meeting, you left your exploitation. There's a difference. Those words became a touchstone for me in the months that followed. I hadn't abandoned a family. I had freed myself from people who saw me as a resource rather than a person. That distinction helped ease the unwarranted guilt I sometimes felt. Therapy became another crucial part of my healing journey. My therapist helped me understand the dynamics that had led me to accept such one-sided relationships. My childhood longing for a close-knit family had made me vulnerable to exploitation. I had confused financial giving with emotional connection, using my resources to buy the acceptance I craved. Generosity should flow from abundance, not from fear of rejection. My therapist explained, "Next time, you'll recognize the difference." Slowly, I began rebuilding my social circle. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. When Ryan had subtly discouraged friendships outside his family, I joined business networking groups where I met other entrepreneurial women with similar experiences. These authentic connections, based on mutual respect rather than transaction, began to fill the void I tried to fill with Ryan's family. My company continued to thrive, expanding into new markets and launching innovative products. Without the constant drain of supporting Ryan's family, I was able to invest more in my employees, improving benefits and creating a profit-sharing program. The loyalty and dedication I received in return was genuine. Unlike the conditional acceptance I'd experienced with the Thompsons, one unexpected joy was rediscovering personal interests I'd abandoned. I took a pottery class, something Barbara had once dismissed as craft store hobbies. I traveled solo to countries I'd always wanted to visit, but had never found time for. When juggling work and family obligations, I adopted a rescue dog who greeted me with unrestrained joy each evening, the purest form of love I'd experienced in years. About a year after the divorce was finalized, I was dining alone at my favorite restaurant when I looked up to see Barbara standing by my table. My heart raced as she stood there, impeccably dressed as always, but somehow diminished. "Emmer," she said, her voice lacking its usual commanding tone. "May I join you for a moment?" Curiosity overcame my initial instinct to refuse. I gestured to the empty chair across from me. Barbara sat stiffly, arranging her napkin with practiced precision. "I'll be brief," she began. "Things have changed since you left." "So I've heard," I replied neutrally. "William has health problems. Ryan lost the house. Jack had to postpone his wedding." She recited these facts as if they were accusations. I waited, sensing there was more to this unexpected visit. Barbara sighed deeply. "I thought perhaps, given your history with the family, you might reconsider your position, not the divorce." She added quickly, "But your financial arrangement with us," the audacity was breathtaking. Even now, she saw me only as a source of funds. "Barbara," I said calmly, "there is no financial arrangement. There never was, except in your mind. But we're family," she insisted, a note of desperation in her voice. "No," I corrected gently, "we're not. You made that very clear the night you called me a lowlife and told me to leave." Her eyes widened slightly. I was upset. "Surely you understand family arguments can get heated." "I understand now that you never saw me as family. I was a resource to be used, not a person to be loved." Barbara's face hardened. "You've become quite cold." "Not cold," I countered, clear. "There is a difference." After she left, I felt no anger, no hurt, just a profound sense of closure. Barbara had shown me once again exactly who she was, confirming that my decision to leave had been the right one. Through mutual acquaintances, I occasionally heard updates about Ryan. He had finally found steady employment at a tech company, ironically in a position similar to where I had started years ago. He was dating again, living modestly. His relationship with his mother had deteriorated as Barbara's criticism, once directed at me, found a new target in her son. I felt no pleasure in his struggles, only hope that perhaps he might eventually learn to establish his own boundaries with his family. Some lessons come at a heavy price. 2 years after my divorce, I established a foundation to support women, entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds. We provided not just funding, but mentorship and emotional support, the things I had needed most when building my business. Watching these women succeed, free from exploitation, became one of my greatest joys. I dated occasionally, approaching relationships with new wisdom and clearer boundaries. I no longer felt the desperate need to buy acceptance through generosity. When I eventually met someone special, our relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than financial transaction. Looking back on my journey, I realize now that walking away from Ryan and his family wasn't giving up. It was finally standing up for myself. The most valuable lesson I learned was that true family ain't defined by blood or marriage certificates, but by respect, reciprocity, and genuine care. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't staying to fight, but recognizing when it's time to close the door and walk toward a future where you're valued for who you are, not what you provide. That's not giving up, it's finally standing up for yourself. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship where you were being taken advantage of? Share your experience in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of finding strength through difficult choices. Remember, sometimes the family we create for ourselves is more authentic than the one we're born or marry into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives courage to anyone who needs to make the difficult choice to value themselves first.